Well, folks, it's that time again. Usually during glorious summertime, where we once again, our generation proceeds to confuse the ever-living hell out of older generation of a dramatized film about the man who helped bring us the atomic bomb and a Barbie girl just simply living in her Barbie world. That's right, we have it once again. You go far enough back, you had Dark Knight and Mamma Mia came out in the same weekend. Fast forward a little bit further in time, you had the whole Animal Crossing and Doom. And once again, these wonderful, lovely little juxtapositions that make for great memes and, let's be honest, just overall marketing. We now have Oppenheimer and Barbie. I mean, either way, I planned on seeing both films regardless, so I was already down for that, but when we all found out they were coming out in the same weekend, I mean, before the memes even really super took off, I'm not trying to say I was ahead of the curve or anything, but I fully intended on, oh cool, that'll be a great little blockbuster double feature, nice little juxtaposition, one super serious, one can be a palate cleanser, and let me tell you, everybody and their mother online hopped onto the trend. We did the thing, we went to go see both in the same day. We actually ended up seeing 3 movies that day, technically, but yeah, most of us dressed up in similar outfits, attire, or garb, just ready for that journey, that overall 5-hour, more or less double feature journey. But first of all, we have Oppenheimer. So I won't dwell too much on one or the other. We got 2 films to cover today, and luckily there's a lot of big names that are super well known. I don't have to go too deep into directors, actors, and filmography, but we're going to try to take this quickly and expediently. Oppenheimer is directed by Christopher Nolan. It's his newest, latest, and greatest film. He's a name that nowadays surely you heard of. Nolan has brought some of my favorite films out there and some of, honestly, people's favorite films out there in general. What's really cool about this is that I'm sure you're aware of IMAX films. Usually when a film is shown in IMAX, it's just been blown up, and there might be some sequences or scenes that are shot for IMAX that fully utilize the aspect ratio of what IMAX offers. Just a larger, crisp, clear, super high fidelity format. What's cool about Oppenheimer is the entire film is shot that way. Granted, some sequences in Oppenheimer do change their aspect ratio still, here and there. For a 3-hour film, almost all 3 hours are entirely shot in IMAX, which has made the film reel itself for this film massive. Here's a cast photo. I think, in my opinion, the 3 heaviest hitters, and there are many other heavy hitters in the film. Cillian Murphy is the star, he plays Oppenheimer. We have Robert Downey Jr. in it as well. We have Emily Blunt as the wife. You'll hear other names tossed out around there, everything from Florence Pugh to Josh Peck, to some of my personal favorites like Alex Wolff or Jack Quaid. Names. All you gotta know is those are the 3 main ones. Pros, as I alluded to a minute ago, obviously this is quite the visual experience. This is one of the few films I've ever seen that it's been entirely shot for IMAX. Being 3 hours, it's a massive undertaking. From a visual experience, it's not as bombastic or as visual as one of his previous works, like Interstellar always comes to mind. It's nothing quite like that, but there are cool sequences. It's shot well. It's directed with a certain aesthetic and style and flair that is usually found within Nolan's overall filmography. Every now and then there are some scenes that kind of make for a more visual treat, including the explosion itself, which is handled in a way that I did not expect it to be handled in. But overall, this was a enjoyable film to watch. I definitely would say maybe keep it to 1 watch though. Cast, no complaints there. I like all the cast, they're all stellar. Didn't have a single actor or line delivery where I thought, that was odd, or I don't know about that guy. Even though there's a lot of actors that are presented before you, no, the ones that are most important to the narrative, and especially for Oppenheimer's narrative, they're all kept pretty focused, and I think people are all given room to breathe within this 3-hour time span. I think where this film probably excels the most is in its dialogue and its scenes of dialogue. It sometimes can be tricky in a film like this to have the amount of exposition or the amount of dialogue or the amount of information being given to characters on screen, but also, to be extrapolated from the audience members themselves. So between the scenes of dialogue where it's scientists that are, discussing theory or how we're going to build this or how we're going to test out that, and between borderline courtroom drama scenes where it's two people, you know, there's cross-examination, there's attorneys, there's characters, there's defense, there's attacking and all this. Those are all done very well, usually with music or like some type of like steady violin or like thrumming or something to kind of ramp up that tension. And there's one thing that Nolan exceeds at in this film and in general with films such as this, it's he knows how to ramp up the tension. And when executed well, they're always fun to watch. He did a similar thing in Dunkirk with that little ticking of the stopwatch because you're counting down to an impending event. I will say though, Oppenheimer wasn't quite what I was either expecting or hoping for the film to be. Without pissing all over this whole thing, I will say the movie is honestly overhyped. Like, it's not Nolan's best work. I know some reviews, I think, again, IGN and their hot takes, pretty sure they gave it like a 10, like a perfect score. Definitely wouldn't go that far. It's really good. Don't get me wrong, it's a really good film, but perfection, no. There's many films of Nolan's I prefer more. And then it's funny how the way they marketed this film, and they were masterful with their marketing, especially riding on the coattails of the Barbenheimer memes and all that. But the marketing was like Oppenheimer, his bomb, and the fallout of that. I mean, that is a portion of the film. A lot of this film is honestly just Oppenheimer and his security clearance about to be revoked and just recounting the events that led up to the Trinity test. The test itself is like, boom, like done. And then the rest of the film is, oh, is he a communist? Why does he feel bad now but didn't feel bad then? And what is his character? How is he like from a moral perspective and standpoint? And just a bunch of stuff that I didn't think the film was going to spend that much time on, but it makes sense because I guess how much can you milk the actual Trinity test, you know? I saw it twice in theaters, and which is good because after I saw it the first time, I wasn't 100% sure how to feel. I'm very glad that I went back to see it a second time, though I will say, unlike other 3-hour films that I've seen, especially last year, where subsequent viewings either felt shorter and shorter or they were just still retaining their quality, I did feel the length more on a second viewing. So hence why I recommend see it once, you'll be all set. And I will say, if you're gonna go see this film, make sure you're awake, make sure you're preferably wired on some caffeine, you know, drink a Red Bull real quick, don't see it too messed up, don't get like high or drunk. You have to engage your brain. It's like watching Game of Thrones for the first time. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of politics, a lot of characters, a lot of dialogue. If you're not paying enough attention, you can easily get lost within this film. It's not overly complex, but there are a lot of moving pieces, and it helps to pay attention. From a technological and filmmaking standpoint, bravo. From an acting standpoint and aesthetic standpoint, sure. From a narrative and overall like engaging film, and not to mention, let's not even get into the muddy waters of the implications of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and how the Japanese perspective and getting away from anything too American in this, we don't really do that. So I had a couple of my friends who did not like the movie, mostly because they just, it's all America and bombs and what does this mean for us? Look, overall, Oppenheimer is not Nolan's best film. I recommend giving it at least a watch. It's one of those films where it is really good and it's worth a watch, but I personally did not love it. He's done better, and I appreciate it for what it is, but I can't honestly recommend it as like, oh my god, one of the best films of the year. But if I'm being fair, I would still give Oppenheimer, I think, a low 4 out of 5. Definitely a low 4 out of 5. It is way above average. It is not near perfection or like one of my favorite films of the year, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge its quality, its accomplishments, all the things that it did do right, but just my personal enjoyment, like, had a good time, but could have had a lot better of a time. Then we have
Humans only have one ending.
Get that Barbie!
Ideas live forever.
Barbie. I think when I first heard about Barbie's announcement, I kind of just like dismissed it low-key, but then as more information was revealed in terms of a director, actors, what it was going to tackle, and then especially when the first like trailer and the concept images dropped, I was 100% down for the ride. Barbie is directed by Greta Gerwig. I've actually covered her before. This is only the 5th film she's directed. Funny enough, I actually did cover her 4th film, the previous film she fully directed, Little Women, which as I've aged and matured, if I were to give it another watch, I'd probably rate it higher. But I will say I did cover her more recently when I reviewed the very odd film that is White Noise. She played Babette. Adam Driver's partner in that film. So she's done a lot more acting than she has directing, but she's done both. She's becoming more and more affluential or influential, I don't know, more of a known quantity as time goes on. Actors, again, we have the two big ones. There's a lot more in the cast, and you already know these two names, not going to get too much into them, but I love them both. Margot Robbie, and then of course, Be Still My Beating Heart, the hot goss, Ryan Gosling over here. So Barbie and Ken, respectively. Plenty of other names in this film, anybody from Michael Cera to Simu Liu to Will Ferrell to a bunch of other, again, known quantities. And America Ferrera as well, who, I oddly enough, I saw Ugly Betty when I was a kid and never forgot that name, so it's kind of fun fact there. So Barbie, I enjoyed this way more than I enjoyed Oppenheimer. This was really great. This movie was hilarious and entertaining all the way through for so many reasons. Any movie that can make Ben Shapiro piss himself is going to be a good time in my book. It's a film where I just have this like big shit-eating grin on my face that I can't hold it back, I can't hide it, and by the end of the film I get a headache from just the grin that I have the whole time. It was consistently funny, consistently entertaining. Me and the group I went with were having a blast as we watched this film. I don't know too much about Barbie and Ken. I know the gist, I know the cultural significance of it, but from what I do know, Barbie and Ken are embodied perfectly, and just I think what really got me was Ken, just like Ryan Gosling as Ken, all of the Kens in this, honestly, but he just hams it up so well in the best of ways, and it's just, they both portray their characters so well. And what got people the most stirred about this, and I think people kind of knew this was coming because of, Greta Gerwig and how she was approaching this film and kind of the trailers and all this, but of course this film does have deeper layers to it, deeper meanings, but there's definitely great commentary on both society and the patriarchy, which sometimes can get a little bit on the nose, but overall it's stuff that I'm on board with. I'm very, not to like try to ride a bandwagon or anything, but men aren't great, myself included. I have my moments, and for this film just to kind of call that out in a very loud way, the way that it honestly should be kind of called out more in society, I'm all here for it. I support it. So I'm on the side of the fence where I say, yeah, all those things they're pointing out, they're true, they exist, they talk about it, they say the quiet part out loud, and I'm here for it. I'm glad. The movie that basically created a pink paint shortage in the nation. The set design on this was great. When they were like in Barbie land, was all the pastels, the pink, all the houses felt like playhouses, the roads, plastic, Mattel manufactured. The set design in this was immaculate for what they were trying to represent, and I loved it. And it played so well, both thematically, but also for a lot of the narrative elements of the film. I think the only things that I didn't like about the film, and only brings it down a tiny bit, and it's just really just me nitpicking, were not all characters got the amount of tension that I would have liked to have seen. The ones that mattered did. Almost every main character gets an appropriate amount of attention, character building, arcs of some sort or another, with the exception of like one or two main characters who I'm like, okay, we got there, but we didn't get there the way that the way that I would have liked to have seen. And then mostly the crime is kind of committed with ancillary characters, but for all intents and purposes of a film like this, with as large of a cast as we are dealing with, it makes sense why not every single itsy bitsy ancillary character would have the full roundabout that I'm looking for personally. Sometimes the commentary and dialogue can be a bit on the nose, which again is fine, like I get it, but just sometimes there's some scenes in dialogue where, I get the point of it, we are saying these important things and it's good we're saying it, but I'm just like, okay, we're a little like, now we're on a soapbox, like kind of on a soapbox, but again, I hesitate to say it like that because it is a soapbox that is important, and there people are saying things that need to be said. I'm actually very surprised. I couldn't decide. I went back and forth on a rating for this film and what I was going to give it, but I think I finally come to a conclusion. Your enjoyment of this film is going to be heavily determined by your personal bias and the kind of films you enjoy. This, for me, funny enough, ticked all the boxes. The quality of a film, it's all there. They accomplished exactly what they set out to do. Even if things are stupid or silly, it's all purposeful. There is intent in this film. I really enjoyed it. The only gripes I had were some minor personal gripes, very minor. Go with my gut. Funny enough, I guess I would give Barbie I'd give it a low 5 out of 5. I give it a low 5 out of 5. It'd be a perfect film if it weren't for my little minor gripes, but again, you can easily write those off. I would love to watch Barbie again. Hands down, no question. Technological standpoint, Oppenheimer probably did more. But at the same time, from just a quality of a film, like overall enjoyment, narrative, characters, acting, all that, Oppenheimer has a lot going for it, but I think Barbie, funny enough, has a broader, a more mass appeal, and I think it accomplishes more of what it set out to do, and I think it's the better and arguably the more enjoyable movies. But yeah, kind of an abbreviated review. I know that plenty of people will already have had plenty of things to say about these films. That's why I didn't exactly rush to get this out, that and I was on vacation. But I figure if anybody's curious about what old MovieMan thought, those are my views and opinions. I'm sure some of you folks might disagree down below. Feel free to comment, tell me why I'm wrong, tell me if you agreed. But yeah, what a year it's been. I'm excited to have been part of history and actually go do the Barbenheimer or Oppen Barbie for you weirdos out there. It was fun. It was cool to be part of this whole marketing cinematic movement. I always love it when films do stuff like this, or you have juxtaposing double features that I normally would have, but now with a whole nationwide appeal, international appeal. I recommend both films, but I definitely think that Barbie was better, and I enjoyed Barbie more, funny enough. So take that for what you will. But thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. And goodbye, or I don't know, goodbye, travelers.